All right, here is a Melcon step-by-step process. I'm going to ask you guys to hit stop along the way in this video so that you can actually stop and write. Okay, so be ready to hit pause. So this is a Melcon review. This is something you're familiar with from freshman and sophomore year. This is how you write a body paragraph. Okay, so a main idea. Main idea is the very first sentence in a paragraph. The main idea should state the topic of the paragraph. You should have mentioned that already in the thesis statement, which you've already built, okay? And then you're going to add something new to that idea that was presented in the thesis. So, for example, if my thesis was George is motivated by appearances and the opinions of others, and his choices negatively affect Beneatha's growing independence, then my main idea is going to be somewhat similar, but I need to kind of change up the words a little bit. So I've said George is motivated by the opinions of others and impacts others negatively. Okay, so I'm saying the same thing. I just switched up some of the words. So that's your main idea. Okay, I want you to stop the video when I'm done talking here, pause it. And I want you to write your main idea sentences for each of the paragraphs. So you're going to go to that first slide for paragraph 1, write that main idea. Go to the next slide for paragraph 2, write that main idea. And I know this sounds crazy, but I want you to then highlight it in yellow. Go ahead and hit stop. Okay, so the reason I'm having you highlight them is because when you're done, everything should have a highlight color. That doesn't mean you're going to turn it in with a bunch of highlights. But what it means is that it's almost like a way to make a way so that you know for sure that you've got all of the elements in the paragraph or in the essay that you need. Okay, so your evidence. You need at least 2 pieces of evidence in each paragraph, in each body paragraph. Evidence is information from the text and it supports your argument, and it must be in author's words exactly. So when I just glance through your essay, there should be 2 E's, 2 quotations, 2 parentheticals in each body paragraph. You've got 2 body paragraphs, so I should see 4 E's, okay? Each piece of evidence should have background information. So what is happening with the character or in that scene at that time? Pretend that I don't know what's going on in the play. So you're going to give me that background information. Then you're going to have the AW, which is the author's words exactly, with quotation marks around it. And you're going to have a citation, which is that parentheses, her last name, Hansberry, and the page number. And this is what it looks like. So this is an example. What I have highlighted here is an example of the background information. What's going on in the scene, okay? When George comes to pick Beneatha up for their date, he sees her dressed in African robes and says, okay, that is the background information. If you were in class, I think last week, 2 weeks ago maybe, we talked about how if you were telling me a story about something, like let's say your boyfriend told you something, you wouldn't come up to me and say, "You're so cute today." You would say, "My boyfriend told me you're so cute today." Right? So this part that I have highlighted in orange, it's the introduction to what is being said. It's really important. We never, ever, ever start an E. We don't start a sentence with a quotation. Ever, ever, ever. Okay, you're going to get marked off big old points if you do that. So please lead into that quotation. Okay, it's I think some teachers in sophomore year call it an attribution. Okay, fancy schmancy. After that, you have the actual author's words exactly. This should be exactly like it is in the text. If they use a comma, you use a comma. If they use a little hyphen, you use a hyphen. If they spell something in a way that is like a dialect, you spell it that way too. It's the easiest part of an essay because you're not really writing it. Hansberry wrote it, so copy it exactly as she did. And finally, you have the citation, which is her last name and the page number. A couple things I want you to notice. You'll notice here that after the quotation mark, there's a space, okay? You should never have, let me just show you. It should not look like this. It should not look like, delay. It shouldn't look like this. Like these don't get smushed together. You need to have a space, okay? These don't get smushed together. You got to have a space after a comma, okay? So you have a space after the punctuation mark. There is no space here and no space here. There's no space here. So I want you to make sure that when you're typing it, that you're doing it exactly like mine looks. Okay, that's how to appropriately format your parentheticals. There will be a portion of the rubric that is about basic formatting. This is what we're talking about, this along with like how to indent a paper. But this is one of the things we're looking at when it comes to a format. Can you follow a simple format? Okay, so this is how you write your evidence. I want you to pause the video. You can either locate and highlight your evidence. For those of you who copy and pasted a paragraph that you wrote during week 4, I want you to look to make sure you have the background information, you have the quote, and you have the citation. Okay, and use these different colors to help you out. If you're in the middle of writing yours, then I want you to stop and I want you to write them. Go find them. Okay, go ahead and hit pause. Okay, let's talk about the links. The links is the most important part of your body paragraphs. This is where your opinion and your thoughts come into play. Okay. You need at least 2 in each paragraph because after every E, you have an L. That's why it goes M-E-L-E-L, con. Okay? Your link should paraphrase the text if it's needed. You should definitely explain what you've written, and you want to tie it to the main idea, which for this essay is what motivates your character, and what is the impact on others. Okay? So you're going to connect that main idea sentence indicating what motivates your character and its impact on others. Here's an example. What I have above here is a main idea. George is motivated by the opinions of others and impacts others negatively. And then you have an evidence. When George comes to pick Benita up for their date, he sees her dressed in African robes and says, "Let's face it, baby, your heritage is nothing but a bunch of raggedy-ass spirituals and some grass huts." Here is me explaining the evidence. He says this to Benita because Benita is attempting to express her heritage after Asagai influences her to embrace where she comes from. Now I'm going to connect it to the main idea. My main idea was that he's motivated by the opinions of others. George doesn't want to embrace his African heritage because he thinks it's an embarrassment. He's proud of his American culture. That American culture is him being motivated by the opinions of others. Finally, it impacts Benita, right? We set up here in our main idea that it impacts other people negatively. So I say he belittles, which is not a good thing. He belittles Benita for her opinion, which pushes her further away as she yearns to embrace where she comes from. Okay? Notice that this link is 3 sentences long. A good link is going to be 2 to 3 sentences. It's not just a paraphrase. You got to take it further beyond. I want you to stop, pause the video, either locate and highlight, make sure that you've paraphrased and explain the motivation and impact of others, or you can pause and write your links. This is going to take you a while, so you might have this video on pause for a while. You might need to take a brain break for a while, but let's get through those links. Go ahead and hit pause. All right, let's now talk about the concluding sentence, which is the last sentence of the paragraph. It is so very similar to the main idea. All you have to do is add a transition, change around the order of words and ideas, use synonyms to change the words and phrases. So for example, my main idea was George is motivated by the opinions of others and impacts others negatively. I'm starting off with the transition, therefore. The opinion of others is extremely important to George and his choices negatively impact those around him. All I did was rearrange the wording and add a transition, okay? What's hard about the concluding sentence is sometimes you want to be careful that the link right before it, that you're not saying the exact same thing, okay? So again, we want to use synonyms and really kind of expand your vocabulary in your writing. So pause the video and write those concluding sentences, and then I want you to highlight them yellow. Pause. All right, guys, if you've made it all the way through, then you have an M-E-L-E-L con. Make sure to add transitions. You want to have, in that first body paragraph, maybe you want to say first of all. You want to use words like although and however and really kind of connect those sentences together. Check spelling and grammar, capitalization, punctuation. If you have any red squiggly lines, I'm pretty sure you can click on Control. If you put your cursor on top of a squiggly line, click on Control and tap your mouse, and it's going to give you those spelling suggestions, okay? Please make sure you're spelling character names correctly and capitalizing them as well. Mama, M-A-M-A, is her name. So you need to, her name is Lena, but Hansberry chooses to call her Mama, and so the M needs to be capitalized. It's not M-O-M-M-Y. It's not M-O-M-O. It's not M-O-M-A. It's M-A-M-A. So please make sure you are spelling their names correctly. And good job with those Melcons.